Good evening, everybody. Welcome back to Spirits and Ghost Stories. I'm your host, Thomas Aarons.
And I'm Carly Bird.
Carly, you are absolutely jacked.
Ooh!
I'm telling you, huge shout out to, we probably should have done this in the pre-thing. What's the name of her?
Brett.
I know, her, welcome to Brett's Workout. What's the name of her company?
Forked Up Nutrition.
That's what I was going to say. Please contact Brett for Brett's Nutrition. Fucked Up Nutrition?
Forked Up.
Oh, Forked Up. Gotcha. Okay.
Like they eat a lot of protein, forked up. I think they actually
Oh, that's
meals.
cute.
Yeah, like I think her husband actually makes meal preps and drops them off to people's houses and stuff. Like that's kind of how he started.
Does he do it shirtless?
I'm pretty sure there's a lot of photos on him on Instagram of him being shirtless.
Probably would help with his sales.
Yeah.
Anyway, so Forked Up Nutrition is the name of their thing. She's really, really awesome at what she does, and so is her husband. Guys, give them a follow.
They're
Really helped Carly. And by the way, my mother, who looks like she went through chemotherapy in a good way, she has lost over 400 pounds.
Oh my gosh. I think it's like 30 pounds, 40 pounds.
3 pounds?
I said 30 or 40. 30 or 40. 3040.
She's lost a metric shit ton of weight. Like she literally looks like a different person.
Yep.
Like I saw her a long time ago. And what doesn't do her justice is she's still wearing, like, I call these clothes, I think the scientific size is like a tarp. It doesn't. What? GoFundMe. She needs better clothes. The point is she still has her old clothes on from when she
Right, they're way too baggy.
Yeah, I don't know like the politically correct term to say that, but like.
They're oversized.
Yeah. And you don't.
By like 2 sizes.
How do I say it? Like you don't see her improvement with what she's wearing right now.
Right.
But then I was able to see a photo of her. That sounds weird. Of her like before and after. And it's like, oh, shit.
Yeah.
Wow, that's awesome. Congratulations. Because
like
the way she dresses.
She's like skinny.
She is. But like I'm saying, like it's good. That's really good for her. I'm like, it's awesome that she's the poster child for this, but then you and my sister.
And then she's still on top of it, you know? And she started in
If
October.
she volts this.
I know.
What are those popper things? Those confetti poppers?
I want her to learn how to vault so bad because literally.
I thought at our first competition.
Literally, if she would just hop just a little bit. I mean, your mom's so freaking tall as it is. Like she's what, like 5'7" or something, 5'8". And
could
DJ,
you imagine if MA won if she vaulted?
If she vaulted, the look on people's faces, they would lose their
I would
minds.
Literally tell. If we told everyone she's about to vault right now,
I know.
I think the whole place would lose their shit.
Everybody would like stop doing what they were doing.
Clear, absolutely applause.
A line, B line, C line. I would all just
lose their shit.
Stop looking and just like look at her and just like wait for her to vault.
I mean,
it'd be amazing.
I know there's other people like when like little girls and stuff like would vault for the first time. Everyone would like applaud. If everyone knew Linda was about to vault. I'm telling you, you're right. Everyone would fucking stop and watch. I feel like
she could. Like, even if DJ just stands and she does a standing vault, I swear she could do it. I don't know.
Oh, 100%. DJ.
She goes to the gym like 3 to 4 times a week.
I want this to happen because this is a story. This is like Rocky. Like the fact that you go like beginning of this and then she vaults.
I know.
Like it's I don't know, guys. Anyway, it's a cool story. But your biceps really made me think about that.
Thank you.
I know people are going to misconstrue like, oh, your biceps anything your mom. Like, no, that's not my point. My point is like, you guys have been working really hard. You're showing it off, and she's going to be ready for the Bahamas. So that's going to be really good for that. Oh yeah, she's going to the Bahamas. Spoilers.
I'm going. He's not.
No, I got to work, sadly. But anyway, no, the workout's been working out really well for all of us. We're looking good right now. We're getting stronger. And then with that said, we are going to get into the first thing.
To scary things in the news.
I can't sing worth shit.
I know you can't.
I think that's it. I can't see.
Remember when you sang to JoJo?
He did not like it.
The face he makes, he just like starts hiding his face.
Yeah, he's
like putting his paws over his ears. Like,
he shakes his head like the tickleness. My brain
he's like,
tickles.
your voice is making my brain tickle.
Okay, so anyway, what I have for Scary Thing in the News this year,
Ghost Tour.
This episode is Ghost Tour franchise comes to Rhode Island, giving locals competition.
Oh, what does that mean?
Welcome back. Even if you don't believe in ghosts, you might enjoy a new Providence Ghost Tour franchise that's just come to town.
If for nothing else, for the exercise and the stories that are certain to give your imagination a workout, as NBC 10's RJ Heim reports, new at 6.
The now historic Benefit Street back in the day used to be called Back Street, the edge of town, where family members buried their dead in their backyard.
What? No, wait, what?
Buried their dead in their backyard.
Family members buried their dead in the backyard.
Yards. including Rhode Island founder Roger Williams. That's just one of the many anecdotes unearthed in the U.S. Ghost Adventures Providence experience, one of 12 new locations added to their roster of 50, and now Rhode Island, catering to curious tourists.
In my research, I found a bunch of folks doing this sort of thing.
Were they like, oh, you're moving in on our territory?
Well, actually, it was a little bit like that. Yeah.
Well, what's better than competition, right?
Well, hey, that's why they put all the fast food restaurants in the same block.
The Providence guided tour starts on foot at Memorial Park and works its way to the Athenaeum on Benefit Street, said to be haunted by Providence writer Edgar Allan Poe.
People have reported.
To be fair, if I could see Edgar Allan Poe, maybe it's because I just watched that amazing show on Netflix, Pale Blue Eye. That'd be pretty cool.
With Christian Bale.
Out of all the ghosts I could see, Edgar Allan Poe would be a good one. And we got a couple more minutes here, and then we'll talk.
Hearing him in the stacks at the library after hours.
There's the Shunned House that horror writer H.P. Lovecraft fashioned for his fictional tale of a werewolf. There's University Hall at Brown that was used as a field hospital and morgue during the Revolutionary War.
There's an image of a young man in Revolutionary War gear standing at the window looking out that generations of students have seen. To this day, some students will not go into University Hall because of that.
Now, 72 Waterman Street here is also part of the Providence Walking Ghost Tour. It's now a RISD dormitory.
100 and some years ago, it was a morgue. Numerous students over the years have reported feeling their beds being...
So
it was a morgue.
That was the part
100 years ago.
That was the part of the story I wanted you to hear, and I just thought I could read it or I could just listen to him because it's how nonchalantly they say it was a morgue and now we keep kids here.
Right.
That is freaking amazing.
It's a dormitory. It used to be a morgue only 100 years ago.
Because wasn't it what show was it that we were watching the other day where it was by the way, you have to actually, if people are murdered or something bad happens in a house, you actually have to report it before you sell it. I think it was the Joe Rogan podcast for the two guys, but it's there's something where it's by the way, I didn't realize that it's a law.
Mm-hmm.
I Googled it. It's oh shit, it depends on.
They have to let you know if there were people actually murdered in the house or if somebody died in the house.
It's almost like the reverse of being a sex offender. You have to tell everyone in the neighborhood.
It's this house, people died in it, and it's potentially haunted. So,
And to me, what's so cool about this is the fact that the reason they're doing this is to help actually talk about the history of the place. And there's little things right there, like Edgar Allan Poe, the people that wrote the Mysteries of Cthulhu, things like that. It's really cool.
Mm-hmm.
But how nonchalantly you talk about the morgue and how that was repurposed, and that to me is I don't know, I could not be. If someone was brutally raped and murdered in our apartment. If I knew that, it would make it a little bit harder to sleep at night.
Mm-hmm.
If I knew this place was a graveyard,
right,
an Indian burial ground, something like that, I don't. And this is the thing: is it because my mind is telling me it's bad, or because actually I feel it?
I don't know. I feel like we've felt some presences here before, but we
you
try to put them out of our mind because we're oh, it's all in our head. But if we knew that something actually happened, there would be no way we could mentally be oh, it's just in our head.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Then we would constantly dwell on it. We would have no reason to tell ourselves not to think about it.
And that's the issue I have with the whole thing about these areas that get repurposed, so to speak. It is that you don't know. And then it's really that is it a placebo effect? You don't know. I was watching this one documentary again, Joe Rogan and these two YouTubers he had on. It's this chair that if you sit in it, and this is the same thing we did at Gettysburg.
Mm-hmm.
You sit in it, you could have a heart attack, all this bad stuff happens.
Right.
It's if you sit in the chair and you didn't know about it, would you feel it?
Right.
That to me is
right.
That would be the ultimate thing. You take that chair, you put it with about 5 other chairs,
right?
Have everyone sit down, and then what do you feel? And
right.
then we'll let you know whether this
if you're on the haunted chair or not.
Then it'd be fucking terrifying.
Right.
Because if 99% of the time, everyone's oh, they pick out that chair, it's
then it'd be
holy shit.
Oh, this is right.
Yeah, this is right. Yeah. So anyway, that's why I have the scary things in the news. I thought it'd be a little bit interesting. Again, if this is something that you're interested in, there's a huge YouTube video on this thing. It's called the Ghost Tour franchise. It comes to Rhode Island, and they give local competition to other ghost tours. So this is a national franchise for ghost touring, but they're going to Rhode Island because there's so much history there. I think that's really interesting, and I'm actually gonna, now that I found them, I'm actually gonna do more about them, because it's just fascinating that you have these local franchises, and what's nice about having franchises like this is there's more information for different local ghost stories.
True.
So this franchise is also in Gettysburg.
I love Gettysburg.
And that's how they found him. Is Gettysburg, guys, is local to us.
I kind of want to move there.
Really?
Yeah.
Why?
I enjoy the drive to Gettysburg every
fair
time we go.
Fair enough.
And I just feel like anytime we drive through it, I'm like, it gives me peace. Like just the neighborhoods, the kinds of houses and developments we drive past. It's not like we're in the city, but we're also not out in bumfuck nowhere.
Mhm.
We're like in a nice, quaint community of like farmettes and I don't know. And then you get to Gettysburg and there's so much history there and it almost feels like you're like a little resort. So similar effect to like Berkeley Springs, West Virginia, you know? But Gettysburg, I don't know, feels a little bit cleaner. Does that make sense?
Gettysburg is 100% cleaner because it's a national park.
It just feels a little bit.
So,
oh, right.
that
And then
makes
the
sense.
wide open parks that you know are never going to be developed.
Mhm.
You know, there's never going to
It's gonna
be
be
like
clean.
massive houses built out on that field because it's you know, government property and
Yeah, 100%.
you know.
That's a good point. That's a really good point.
So yeah, maybe we'll move there someday. All right, everyone, prepare yourselves for the tale of Dad's painting. I guess it started when Dad bought the painting. Now, my dad isn't an art expert, but he does love a bargain. He found a painting on eBay, an original piece that no one seemed to be bidding on. Dad snapped it up, virtually sight unseen. He spent days crowing about his great buy. When it was delivered a few days later, the first surprise was the size. Apparently, Dad hadn't checked that out. It was 24 by 36 inches, so not small. Mom was not happy, but Dad said he'd moved some stuff around in the living room and there would be space for it. While Dad had been talking, all I'd been able to see was the back of the painting. When he turned it around, I felt uneasy. The picture was of a young boy, about 5 years old, with short black hair, standing in front of a glass-paneled door, with a female doll propped up beside him. On the other side of the door, pressed up against the glass panels, were hands, many hands. The whole image made me uncomfortable. The boy was frowning, looking unhappy, almost aggressive. The doll had no eyes, just black holes. And the hands, well, they were quite disturbing, at least to me. Dad, however, was still thrilled. He kept going on about how lucky he was to get such a great piece, which apparently represented the line between fantasy and reality or something. He propped it up on an ottoman in the living room, saying he'd get around to mounting it on the wall one day. We'd all heard this from Dad before. One day could very well mean no day. After dinner that evening, I happened to look at the painting again. The boy's eyes struck me. The more I looked at them, the more they seemed to suck me in. I stared. It was almost as if I was looking in a mirror. His eyes and my eyes felt connected. He blinked. I saw movement. My heart leaped into my throat. I wanted out. I wanted to back away, but I seemed rooted to the spot. I couldn't move. The eyes never left mine.
Nope.
What you doing? My sister's voice broke the silence and seemed to knife through the connection between me and the painting. I turned away and was overcome by a sudden feeling of dizziness. I dropped into a chair, careful to avoid any glance at the painting again. My sister came up to me. You okay? You look terrible. Yeah, I'm just dizzy. I shook my head. I'd been up since early that morning and I'd been out all day in the sun. Must just be a touch of sunstroke or something. I grabbed a bottle of water and headed off to bed. As most people would, I rationalized that experience. I just assumed it was me, my mind, playing tricks on me. I'll admit, though, that I always tried to avoid looking at the painting when I went into the living room. Even without that strange movement, the picture would still have creeped me out. It just had that weird vibe to it. It took me a while to realize it, but my sister was avoiding the painting too. Now, I have to admit, we didn't talk that much. She was 4 years younger than me, which, given I was 15, was enough to make our relationship rocky at times. It's that family thing. being too similar and too different at the same time. Anyway, I noticed that she would always choose a seat that kept the painting out of her immediate eyesight. Whenever she was in the living room, if she had to go across the living room, she'd always try to stay far away as possible, even if that meant going out of her way. Usually, if I'd noticed that behavior before, like that, I would have used it against her, teased her about it. That's what older brothers are supposed to do. Not this time, though. This time, I shared at least a little of her fear. One night, when our parents had gone out, we were sitting in the dining room, and I asked her about it. She replied immediately and seriously, "That boy is evil," she said. "The whole picture is evil. I don't like it." I didn't laugh. Instead, I asked, "Why do you think that?" She leaned across the table and looked at me straight in the eye. "The thing it rests on, the ottoman, it moves," she whispered. I was going to laugh, tell her to stop trying to tease me when I saw the look on her face. But she was serious, deadly serious, and she was scared. "When?" I asked. "When Mom and Dad aren't in the room? Suppose no one's looking straight at it, it moves, it shakes. It's scary."
That's not good.
I felt I had to do the big brother thing, be the voice of reason. It could just be the vibration, if a truck goes past the house or something. She was silent for a few seconds. I could see a conflicted look on her face. I thought she was trying to process what I'd suggested. She wasn't. "It's in my dreams," she whispered. "What?" "I dreamed. I was walking through the house. I came down the hall. The door to the living room was closed, but a red light was coming all around it. I was going to open the door. Then from nowhere, there was an angel standing there. He was tall, blonde, with big white wings and a sword of fire. He stopped me and said, 'Do not enter the living room. Never at night.'" Well, that's just a dream. I was trying to do the big brother thing again. That's not all. There were tears in her eyes now, and she looked scared. "I've seen the boy." "The boy in the picture?" "Yes. I was sleeping. I felt something pull on my leg. It pulled stronger and stronger, shaking me. When I opened my eyes, I saw him, the boy, from the picture. He was there, grabbing my ankle. I couldn't move. I was so scared. And then? I'm not sure. He turned his head like something got his attention, then he disappeared, and I was lying in my bed." She was crying now. I tried to convince her it was all a bad dream, nothing more, but I was not convinced myself. I sat with her in the bedroom as she went to sleep that night, only coming out when Mom and Dad came home. I'm not sure if I stayed with her because she was scared or because I was. A couple of nights later, I was home alone. The others had gone out to a birthday party for one of my sister's friends. Because my parents knew the friend's parents, they'd gone together. I had no interest in an 11-year-old's birthday party, so I stayed home. I was in my room, surfing the net. I felt uneasy. My desk faces the window, so I sit with my back toward the door to my room. Every few seconds, I'd get that feeling that someone was out in the hall looking at me. I'd turn, and of course, there'd be no one there. I was alone in the house, and I couldn't shake that feeling. I couldn't even concentrate on my surfing. I shut down the browser, and I looked behind me. No one there. I realized that the house was silent. That seemed a little strange. Any house has some noise, and we live on a reasonably busy road. I couldn't hear a thing. It was like something had muffled the whole world. I concentrated, trying to hear anything. Then a scream split through the silence. My whole body leaped out of the chair. It was a scream of absolute horror and fear. It sounded like the scream of a young boy, and it came from inside the house. It sounded like it came from my parents' room, but I was alone in the house and I knew that. Then silence again. The same absolute silence. My heart was still racing, my hands shaking. I tried to get a grip on myself. It was just an illusion, someone outside screaming, though I knew I'd heard the sound from inside the house. Maybe I'd fallen asleep in my chair for a second. I dreamed it all. Then I realized the house was no longer silent. I could hear the music. A child singing? It was quiet at first, but it started to build. My phone, maybe. Maybe it switched to some dumb ringtone or something. I picked it up. The screen was black. I pushed the buttons, still black. The music was getting louder. It was not coming from my phone. Turns out my phone was dead. I jumped out of my chair and dove across the hall into the bathroom. I slammed the door shut and quickly slid the lock. The bathroom's the only room in the house with a locking door. I huddled in a corner on the floor, my eyes on the locked door as the music rose louder and louder. Then it stopped. Nothing. Total silence. I was frozen in the bathroom. There was no way I was going out into that silence. No way I was going to see what was happening out there now. I started to relax a little when I began to hear loud noises again. The silence had gone. I stayed in the bathroom, though, till I heard the sound of my parents' car pulling into the driveway. Then I slipped out of the room and back into my room. To bed, though it took me a long time to get to sleep that night. The next day was sunny and clear, and the daylight and the sunshine, all my fear of the night before faded away. I told myself it was nothing. It must have been a dream or something. I couldn't have been real. As it got dark, though, my unease returned. There was a feeling in the house. It wasn't just me that felt it. We all seemed upset, easily annoyed, jumpy. My parents had a huge argument, something they rarely do. My father slammed the door of their room, and my mother said she'd sleep on the sofa in the living room. My sister, desperate for company when she slept, said she'd sleep on the other couch too, to keep Mom company. I went to bed feeling that the whole house seemed to be smothered in a haze of darkness. Nothing physical, but a suffocating feeling that seemed to have spread across all of us. Surprisingly, given my feelings and what had happened the night before, I fell asleep almost instantly.
That's weird.
Later, I dreamed. I was standing in the hall, just outside my room. It was our house, but it was wrong. All the windows were black, like there was nothing outside the house. Like you do in a dream, I somehow knew something was coming. I turned toward the stairs. The lights on the stairway were on, but they started to flicker. Slowly at first, then faster, almost as quickly as a strobe light. And about this time, when I was reading the story upstairs, is when the lights started to flicker, and I started to freak out. Do you remember I was upstairs reading?
Oh, okay, you're off the story. He was like, oh shit.
Do you remember I was upstairs reading,
Yeah.
and the lights started to flicker at the same freaking part in the story?
Wow.
Yeah, I was reading this to myself, and the light flickered on and off, and I looked at Tom and I said, "Did you see that?" He's like, "See what? The light?" I was like, "Yeah." And then it continued to do that while I was upstairs finishing the story. Anyway, back to it. I walked toward the stairs and looked down. In the flickering light, I saw a small figure walking up towards me. I could barely make out his appearance. He seemed to be a young boy, but the colors were all wrong. His skin was gray, his clothes black. His head was down, so I couldn't see his face. Suddenly, the lights were off completely. I was left, petrified, standing in the darkness. Then they came back on. The child was standing right in front of me at the top of the stairs. I knew he was small, but somehow he also seemed my height. I could look him straight in his face. His gray features were contorted into a look of hate and aggression. He hated me. I could see it. His eyes glowed yellow and seemed to be getting brighter, burning into my mind. My thoughts rushed back to the barely believed religious instruction I've heard throughout my childhood. "In the name of Jesus, leave me alone!" I shouted at him.
That is a random curveball. Okay.
He vanished. I was left standing alone at the top of the stairs. Then I woke up. My room was pitch dark. My heart was pounding and I was drenched in a cold sweat. I didn't want to move. I didn't want to do anything that might draw attention to myself. The dream had felt so real, so true. Finally, I gathered my courage and reached for my phone to check the time. 3 o'clock. I'd have to find a way to get back to sleep. Then a scream ripped through the night. This time I recognized the voice. It was my sister. I leaped out of bed and I raced downstairs to the living room, arriving at the same time as my father. We both rushed into the room to find my sister and my mother huddled together on the sofa, their faces white, their eyes staring. My father rushed to comfort my mom, all thoughts of their argument gone. I hugged my sister, feeling her galloping heart through my pajamas. "What happened?" Dad asked. "Not here," Mom replied. At my mother's instance, we all moved into the dining room with hot cocoa and coffee made. My sister told her story. She'd been asleep on the sofa. Something had grabbed her ankle and started pulling. She'd had an old blanket pulled over her face, but it had a hole in it, and she'd seen who was there. It had been a little boy, about 5, with short black hair. His face, though, seemed to be falling off his skull. She said she could see bone poking through. His eyes were empty, black holes. She'd closed her eyes, not wanting to see any more. Then it seemed to stop, and she felt like she woke up again. The boy was standing in the living room. He started to run, faster than any little boy could, out the living room door, back in again. Then he stopped and stared at her. She said the stare felt evil, like she could feel the hate flowing off of him. Then she screamed, and he vanished. My mother had been quiet through this story. She looked concerned, though. I asked her why. "Your sister's screaming woke me up. It gave me quite a shock," she said, "just as I was opening my eyes. Just as I was waking up. I could have sworn there was another person in the living room with us. I didn't see him clearly, but just for a second, I'm sure I saw someone small standing there." All 3 of us turned to Dad. "Get rid of that painting," Mom said. My sister and I nodded. Dad, to his credit, didn't argue. The very next morning, he took it in his car. On the way to work, he dumped it behind the old brewery. He said no one would ever find it there. I hope not. I don't want anyone else to go through what we did. And that was the tale of Dad's painting.
Okay, why the old breweries? Try to at least sell it again.
I don't think he wanted anyone to have it.
Great story. Oof.
Creepy, right?
All the hands, like, ugh. And the lights flickering, like, ugh.
It almost gave me the thoughts of Amityville.
Yes.
Yeah. So you know how like there was like a demonic possession in the house. Something was possessed, and it was definitely the painting. But in Amityville house, you know, like everybody kind of started to turn each other. And the youngest child is the one that saw it, that got to see it. Like no one else saw it.
It's all the hands that freaked me out, and for some reason, the whole Jesus thing freaked me out too.
Yeah.
The power of Christ is like, oh, okay.
Well, that's because like it was a demon, but like in his dream, he knew that the only way to get rid of a demon is to like show it, you know, like say God, you know, say God's name. So that he said it, and then that's what gets rid of the demon.
Heck no. Hell no.
Hell no.
Guys, again, thank you so much for watching. This has been episode. Man, this was a lot of fun. That was a really, really good story. Like and subscribe to the channel. Please leave a comment. If you could leave an Apple review, it really helps in the algorithm so we can do more of this. And we'll see you next time on Spirits and Ghost Stories.
Bye.
Bye.